Over this last weekend, we got a glimpse of just how this new college football playoff format is. And I'll be the first to tell you, I love it. Everything that there is so far about it, I'm all for it. And I can't wait to talk more about it. But we did get some great games. We got some games that just really were kind of washouts. But nonetheless, these teams made it. They earned their way to the college football playoffs. So we're going to talk about those games. And as well, it is ho 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 Merry Christmas Eve, and there is now NFL games on Christmas. So we are going to talk more about those and the impact it has on the season. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and with me today is none other than Ed Smith.
Hook 'em, y'all.
And that was a really hefty hook 'em by Ed Smith because, well, I mean, we're going to talk more about it, but Longhorns had a pretty good weekend this past weekend, but uh, there were several other teams that had a pretty good weekend too. This was our first glimpse into the college football playoff, Ed, the new format. Um, Quickly, what are your thoughts kind of on what you saw this weekend? You impressed with kind of how things looked?
I was impressed with the home teams.
Mm-hmm.
The road teams, I just seemed like they were the participation trophy of this playoff. But that's going to happen sometimes when you're talking a bracket format. Sometimes you will have that team that is just the team of destiny that is going to come in and beat the favorite. But sometimes you don't. And that's just part of it. The fact that it was just one weekend, this is the first time we're doing this, and it all went scratch. That's just part of it. Uh, and I've seen a lot of arguments about the best teams versus most deserving, and I'm like, it it's a bracket. This is how things go. Because if we were dictating what the best matchups were, it's a production show. It would be a TV show, not sports. And we're here for the sport of this.
Yeah, absolutely we are. And I know many are going to argue the teams that did lose for the most part, except for Tennessee, were those teams that kind of just squeaked by. They just made it in, and that's Clemson, SMU, Indiana. Indiana did have a great year, but I think a lot of college football knew that they weren't going to be a superior team, but you never know. We have seen plenty of Cinderella stories, and Indiana could have been one of those, but they were not. That game took place on Friday night in South Bend as the Hoosiers took on the Fighting Irish. And Ed, each week I continue to get more and more impressed with this Marcus Freeman team. Notre Dame, although at the end of the day they're still Notre Dame. For those of you who are college football fans, know what I mean. But Marcus Freeman, I feel like he's onto something, and it's looking good over in South Bend for this Fighting Irish team. Riley Leonard's playing some of his best football right now, and sometimes a recipe for success is showing up at when it means the most. So, your thoughts on that Notre Dame team and the game against Indiana?
Well, if it hadn't have been for this team feeling like they could roll their helmets out against a lesser opponent in NIU, this is a team that would be the fifth seed of the playoffs because they would be undefeated. Notre Dame not eligible for the top four seeds in this current formation of the bracket. They would be the fifth seed as an undefeated team. And they showed on Friday night why they would be the undefeated team. If they are engaged and just ready to take the mantle, this is a dangerous ball club because they can make timely plays. They can drain the clock. They can play defense. They can really band together the way that you would anticipate a Notre Dame team doing. Whereas Indiana coming into this game, there were always these questions about Indiana's schedule and who have they played, and they played one team and got blown out by them, but they still won 11 games. I understand all that. Indiana deserved to be there. Not in my mind, there's no question about that. But Notre Dame is the superior team, and they did show it for 3.5 quarters of this football game.
Yeah, they really did, and you hit it right on the point with their run game because they're able to control the clock so much with their stellar run game right now that they're controlling the game. And I noticed such a big difference in that fact against Indiana was Notre Dame was just controlling the line of scrimmage, they were controlling the run game and the clock management as well. It was just to me it was a really flawless game. The 27-17 point score doesn't mean much to me because Notre Dame beat them a lot better than the score indicates. But yes, I'm impressed with Marcus Freeman, Riley Leonard, and this Notre Dame team. Yeah, that one loss, I know it's going to hang over them, but ultimately being in that fifth seed versus the seventh seed at this point isn't going to matter because they did get the home game. Now it's going to the bowl games where it's going to be on a neutral site. You know how that is in some of these games. But Notre Dame, good for them, and let's see how they do in the next round. The next game that I want to talk about is your game, Ed, and that is the Longhorns and the Clemson Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I mean, I got several things out of this game, but one thing that I want to start off with and give kudos to is the relent, just the heart that Cade Klubnik had. I mean, he was getting Clemson back in this game. He was itching, and I was just impressed with how he was able to do things because they did look at it at a pretty lopsided score, and they decided, all right, I think we could come back in this game. So they did their best. Ultimately, they fell short, but Cade Klubnik, I'm impressed with your game, with your heart, and wanting to win this game for Clemson. But this was Texas's game, and Ed, what worked out to perfection in this game for you guys, and that was the run game.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Jaden Blue, he is the running back that we knew the most about after we lost our top two running backs going into this season. So having him have a big game that we expected most of the year. He's just not in between the tackles type guy. So, and that's where Trey Wisner has become that. So he has become the bell cow of this running attack. Texas just pounded Clemson's front line, front seven. I want to say it was 292 yards of rushing offense in this game by Texas. That is a recipe for success for sure. On Clemson's side, I want to I want to also give Cade Klubnik his flowers in that 336 yards of throwing the ball and 3 touchdowns. Texas had only given up 4 passing touchdowns all year. Cade Klubnik had 3. So he was Superman. And he didn't have much around him. He has freshman receivers that are growing into their roles, and we know that Cade Klubnik can run the ball in spots, but throwing the ball, that's where he shines. And being that he grew up 10 miles away from the stadium that he played on Saturday, great job for sure. My biggest concern as a Texas fan, I'm always looking for the where should I be concerned about this? And it is the fact that Steve Sarkisian continues to try and put teams away inside the in the red zone instead of taking points, which the accumulation of those points would put teams away. So at one point, Texas could have been up 37-10 instead of 38 to then 17 to then 31 to then 17 and then 31 to 24 before Jaden Blue has that breakout run that gets us a final score of 38-24. This Texas team can win this whole tournament, but they have to decide to take the points and be happy with that and continue to add more to the scoreboard, whereas their defense is going to keep their opponents off the scoreboard. So that's where I'm concerned. Super thrilled to have the Texas Longhorns show who they are. They can dominate games, but it's that those little things that are letting teams back in that make us Texas fans concerned if they can actually go in and win it the rest of the way.
Yeah, and we hear all about Quinn Ewers. He is your guys' offense. He's your quarterback. But I think what we were able to see more this last weekend is going against Arizona State, do what worked well already, and that's run the ball. Because I think that's where it really needs to come down to is Texas is known for their linemen. They've always been known for their linemen. Utilize that, control the line of scrimmage, because Arizona State's going to do the same thing to you, is try to run the ball with good old Scadaboo, but you need to run it with your two-headed monster in the backfield, and you had that success against Clemson. Continue to do that, and let Quinn Ewers eventually make his plays, because he will do that, eventually in the game. So if they could play a game like they did against Clemson, like you said, they could win this tournament. So that'll be a good game to keep an eye out on. The next game that I want to talk about is SMU and Penn State. It was a very slow first quarter, and then within a blink of an eye, that completely changed. Penn State, I mean, being an Oregon Duck fan, I was expecting Penn State to kind of do what they did to us. And I mean, they had a two-headed monster in the backfield as well, with Singleton and Allen. And I was expecting that to happen. And then also Tyler Warren, too. And early, it really wasn't like that at all. SMU was holding them, and then SMU just shot themselves in the foot. 2 pick sixes. You can't do that. This is when you need to play your A-plus games. This is when it really matters, and man, did they do the opposite. Having 2 pick sixes in a game is horrible. You don't even want 2 pick sixes in a whole season, but to have them in one game really just changed the whole momentum and gave it all to Penn State. And they're in Happy Valley. It's loud. Well, that's all they really needed in this game, is to have that. uh, SMU was not ready. They were not ready for this type of game, for this type of pressure, and it sucks saying that because of the year they had. And I do believe they did belong here, so I do want to reiterate that. But against Penn State was mightier, and at this point, the lion was mightier than the sword. But Ed, your thoughts on Penn State and kind of how they fare throughout the rest of this tournament too.
Well, Penn State, I think, possibly got the most favorable path
Yeah.
to the championship, being that they had SMU, who was they got put in as the last team placed in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next round, Penn State has Boise State, who, as a group of 5 conference champion, uh, there are some there are going to be very similar questions to them as there is for SMU of, do they belong with the big boys? Uh, and we're going to find out about that. Then once you get past that, then it's going to be the winner of Notre Dame and Georgia, which that is going to be a rock'em sock'em robots type of game. So those teams are going to be beat up after that game. And then Penn State comes in. That is a much more favorable pathway to the championship than what I'm seeing for a lot of the other teams especially in this first round. So, what I will say with SMU, Kevin Jennings, he got rattled uh, at Beaver Stadium, and in the first quarter, they were driving the ball. They were doing well on their first drive, and got to that 4th and 1. He's coming around the edge. He sees an open guy, throws a bad pass. It gets dropped when he could have just run for the first down. And it's always the coulda, woulda, shoulda situation with that. But if you keep the chains moving, the crowd in that stadium was kind of out of it at that point.
Yeah.
They didn't have anything to really energize them. And if SMU goes in and scores on that drive, it gets even better for SMU's sake. But it gives the momentum back to Penn State. Penn State then is able to get the pick six on the next drive, and then the drive after that. And it's Kevin Jennings. He is a phenomenal player, but when the bullets start flying and it gets chaotic, that's when those type of plays happen for him. And he had been turning the ball over at a much higher frequency in the past month. They've just been getting by. Well, Penn State made him pay for it, and Penn State's defense will make anybody that they can turn over pay for those mistakes. So it's exactly as we expected out of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even going back to the red zone and throwing another interception, it wasn't a pick six. It really takes the morale out of you, and it clearly showed. I know they got a touchdown in the fourth, but at that point, it's kind of garbage points. But Penn State looked really impressive, and I don't even think their offense was to its top tier. So they do have a very desirable path to the championship, but Boise State's got a chip on their shoulder. I know that they got the bye, but they still feel like they're being disrespected. Ashton Jeanty did not win Heisman, so who knows? Maybe something like that, just that chip on your shoulder, could really help propel them. It would have been nice to see them get a home game. It'd be nice to see all the people who got a bye have a home game, because they deserve that as well. But with this format, that's not how it's going to work. But
It's going
um,
to get tweaked.
yeah, it'll
It's absolutely
eventually.
going to get tweaked.
Yeah. But I'll tell you who did benefit from a good home game, and that's Ohio State. Uh, This became kind of like a rivalry we didn't know that we needed, and I loved it. I really did, because you saw leading up to the game, some Tennessee fan went on Apple Maps and was able to change Ohio Stadium, the shoe, to Neyland North, and man, did this become some type of rivalry that it was just awesome to watch until only one team showed up. So that was the issue, is Ohio State showed up from the opening drive. Tennessee just did not have really anything to match. I know it did end up being 21-10 at halftime, but this was Ohio State's game. They needed this. I don't know if they needed Ryan Day needed this more than almost anything after that loss to Michigan 4 times in a row, and then also that loss being at home. Uh, they needed some type of case to show that they are still Ohio State, that they belong, and they did just that against Tennessee. I thought Tennessee had a really good year this year. I thought Josh Heupel coached them very well and got some very important wins. But when it came to this game, he did not show up. This Vols team did not show up, and it was all Ohio State, and they really wanted this rematch against Oregon. They made that clear. Of course, they can't look past Tennessee because it's one game at a time, but the way that they played, they had their sights set on something bigger, a little bit more than Tennessee did, Ed. But I mean, the MVP of this game has to be Will Howard. I thought that he
Oh, yeah.
threaded the needle perfect on many of his throws. He just played such a smart game. Him and Jeremiah Smith, once again, that connection, it's happening. And when they have that momentum and that duo game playing, they're almost unstoppable. They really are.
Yeah, and Ohio State, when they had under Ryan Day, they have lost to Michigan and then gone to the playoff 3 times. And in those 3 games, in that first game of the playoff that they've played, they have averaged opening can of whoop ass on offense. And this was no different. They came out and it was just bullet after bullet after bullet, and Tennessee didn't know what hit them. And halfway through the first half, you lose Dylan Sampson. Second half, Squirrel Wright doesn't show up out in the field. And when you are trying to go into Columbus and beat that team and that stadium and that environment, you need to have every possible thing on your side. And to have 2 of your biggest playmakers not be on the field, that's a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what this was. I will say this: Nico put up a hell of a fight on his own,
Yeah.
because that's all that was out there by the end of the game. It was just him. So I I commend Tennessee for the fight that they gave, considering that they didn't have all their bullets in the chamber. But this was just Ohio State's night. There's no denying that. And going into this game against Oregon, the question becomes, that second game against the same opponent, are we going to see as good or better of a game? And will it have the same result going into uh, that game? Which we'll wait and see.
Yes, we will. I mean, that first game was, it's almost tough to get better than that. A 1 point victory. I mean,
In which they had to change rules for it.
yes, they did. Thanks to Dan Lanning, he did that. I want to say 2 weeks in a row. He pulled out the rule book pretty much to show that he could do this, and then they were like, "Well, we're going to need to tweak this." Thanks to Dan Lanning, it's going to be the Dan Lanning rule from now on. But uh, it was a phenomenal game, and I would love to see another phenomenal game between these two programs, because these are two big programs right now in college football. And the way that they're playing, the winner of this could go to the championship game. I mean, they'll have to face off against the winner of Texas and Arizona State. I don't like to assume, but I think that they'll be
Texas.
taking on Texas. And that's going to be another phenomenal game between big programs. So, this is getting fun. It really is, with the college football playoff expansion now. We're going to start seeing these matchups that we don't normally see, and I love it. You constantly see these non-conference games against these JV teams in high school. Now you're actually seeing these non-conference games eventually going to be taking place in the playoffs, and these are dream matchups. I mean, Texas versus Ohio State, Texas versus Oregon. It never happens, and to be able to see stuff like that is awesome. So this is why I'm glad that they did this expansion, because these teams should be playing each other. And if our very own Ed had something to say with it, with this whole conference realignment and all that, we would have them playing a lot more frequently than this. So,
Well, and just one more point.
yeah,
The way that the committee leveraged everything, I think we should start seeing more non-conference big time matchups, instead of playing against your Weber states or
yeah,
Middle Tennessee or VMI,
yeah,
any of these other teams. We should see more of that. In fact, Texas has gotten ahead of the curve by playing Michigan this year.
yeah,
They're going to play Michigan in 2028. No, 2027. Well, in 2025 and 2026, we're playing Ohio State.
yeah.
So we're Texas as a program, we're getting ahead of it, but I think everybody else is going to start seeing that you need to be able to say that you played this team that is of the upper echelon for you to be considered and weighted more on your schedule going into the college football playoff.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure what was it? Alabama's second to last game was against Weber State.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are you going to do that, especially at the end of the year? I feel like that hurts you more than anything because you can't just have these layup games. And by scheduling a big non-conference game such as what Texas is doing with Ohio State, I think that speaks more volumes than anything. So, but we are seeing these matchups. Whether it is going to be Ohio State versus Texas, Oregon versus Texas, we're going to see these premier matchups between these teams that have punched their way. They belong to be here. So, but Ohio State, this was clearly their game to win against Tennessee, and they looked phenomenal. And we're going to see how this next game goes against Oregon. I just hope it's the same outcome as the first game.
That's it.
um, so yeah, that's about it with college football. Wanted to go over those games, but let's talk about some of these games that are taking place in the NFL this week, and more specifically on Christmas, because we are now in a time in America where family time is not valid anymore. I mean, NFL games can still be family time, but if you notice, Black Friday used to always be on Fridays, then it went on Thanksgivings. That's kind of changed. Now we got NFL games taking place on almost every major holiday you could think of, and it's all about competition. Now, on top of it, it's on Netflix. It's always something new, and the game that's going to be taking place first is the Kansas City Chiefs Pittsburgh Steelers. Uh, man,
You have the floor.
I have the floor. It's not going to take me long. Uh, if you're an NFL fan, this wouldn't take you that long either. And this is not me dogging on my Steelers. This is me saying Patrick Mahomes got a high ankle sprain. Just give them the Super Bowl already because we know it's going to happen. The way he was running out there the other day against the Texans, I'm like, what ankle sprain? This has to be made up because it's here he is, Walton. But I know modern medicine is pretty darn good. So that's also a reason why he was able to walk and run the way he was. But to me, the writing's on the wall, Ed. Uh, they've already been narrowing, escaping almost every game they've played. They have their one loss against the Bills. They meet again in the playoffs. We know it won't be that same game. It will be the Chiefs all the way. But the high ankle sprain, this sure sounds familiar when he had a high ankle sprain last time. What happened that year? Oh, yeah, they won the Super Bowl. So it's kind of easy for me to take the Chiefs. I always hate picking against my team. I love my team, and I'm glad we have clinched the playoffs. Okay, that's a decent relief, but now it's all about seeding. Who do you want to play in the playoffs? Because it's pretty close to being on that where the seeds are at. So, but give me the Chiefs in this game. I think it's going to be pretty easy for them. I would love my Steelers to put up a bigger fight, and especially at home. But the Chiefs are going to win this game. I'm going to go 27-17. Give me the Chiefs, Ed.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Chiefs and referees against the Steelers. Um, because if you watched what happened in that game between the Chiefs and the Texans this past weekend, that was some egregious officiating that was completely slanted to the Chiefs. I'm not one for conspiracy theories when it comes to referees because it is an incredibly hard job.
Yeah.
But my goodness, how many how many calls can you get that are favoring one team over the other? Between that was a fumble. I don't care what you say. That was a fumble, Patrick Mahomes. They turned into an incomplete pass just because he shot put it forward doesn't make it a pass. That that play in which the Texans took that fumble back for a touchdown, but then got turned into an incomplete pass. So no harm, no foul. Then OPIs against the Texans that benefited the Chiefs, and then defensive DPI that did not get called in the end zone against the Chiefs. It was just one thing after another, and I know I should be talking about this game between the Chiefs and the Steelers, but I just got to revisit that. That was just some egregious stuff. So, with that being said, when you get, let's say, a 14 to 21 point swing based upon the the way that the game is being called, it's hard to think that any team is going to beat this Chiefs team when that is occurring, and you can plainly see that happening week in and week out. Yes, they get lucky, but you make your own luck in the NFL. It's just sometimes it's just so egregious that you can't ignore it at this point. So I am taking the Chiefs. It is going to be a lower scoring game because this is still the Steelers. So I'm going to take it probably 20-18.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the Steelers when their defense is showing up, they could make it a low scoring game, but eh, we'll see.
Yeah.
Lately, they've been giving up quite a bit of points on defense. So, but we'll see how Mahomes does, how the refs do, and just how this game plays out. But I think the Chiefs, they're pretty much expected to win out at this point.
Yeah.
And we have another Christmas Day game. Is maybe Christmas night. Then that's gonna be day, no matter where you live. But that is the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans.
With Beyonce at halftime.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson will tell you he is not missing that halftime show. Okay, he's got priorities, and that's watching Beyonce at halftime. This game kind of reminds me of a game that I feel like we're going to see in the playoffs. But these two teams, the Ravens, although are 10-5, they are tied atop the NFC or the AFC North with the Steelers. They aren't where they really want to be. I think the Ravens could have a better record than they have right now, but you win and lose in NFL. So occasionally you tie, but the Ravens did not win the games that they probably should have and needed to. The Texans, on the other hand, they aren't riding really the wave that they did last year, and I think that's okay because we've all heard of the sophomore slump. And it's not that CJ Stroud's having a horrible year, but it was kind of hard to replicate what they did last year with the expectations not as high. Now the expectations are higher, and they may not be meeting them, but they still lead the AFC South. They're 9-6. Uh, they're still a playoff caliber team. I know they just had the horrific injury to Tank Dell. I really feel bad for him because things with that wide receiver core started to look, really good. And CJ Stroud's a heck of a quarterback. But injuries do happen in the NFL, and it does suck. But this is a game that I feel like we're going to see it twice. And because of that, I'm going to take the Texans in this game because I think a rematch in the playoffs is going to favor the Ravens. It was tough for me to decide because the Ravens should win this game. They really should. But they have 3 losses on the road, and they're going on the road again. I'm going to go Houston in this game. I think CJ Stroud's actually going to have one of his best games this year against Baltimore. Keep in mind, Baltimore has been one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. I know that's changed as of recent, but a lot of teams have had their way with them, and I think the Texans are going to. Give me the Texans at home on Christmas Day in this game. I think it's going to be a lot of offense. Give me 31-28 Houston. It's going to be a high-scoring game. Ed, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling like the Houston Texans are, shall I say, to compare them to a college team. I'm going to say the Texans are this year's Penn State.
Okay.
They are a team that can certainly beat teams that are beneath them, but they really do not match up well against teams that are above them. So that is historically under James Franklin what Penn State has been. That's the way I feel about the Texans this year. They are still getting better. they're the schedule that they took on this year. I anticipated them to have a step back, but this is still the division winner of the AFC South. So it's hard to say that it's been a flop or anything to that sort. It's just they didn't go up to 13 wins, which, okay, you get a harder schedule and you still get the same number of wins that you had last year. That's still a pretty successful season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm completely cool with that. But I do feel that the Ravens are a better team. So because they are on the higher end of the AFC, I'm going to take the Ravens in this because that is just who the Texans are. They are the team that loses to teams that are above them, and the Ravens are certainly above the Texans at going into this season.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, and we saw this last week with Kansas City. I picked Houston to win that game because I just felt like they were going to, and Kansas City won, as Ed talked about, maybe with the help or two from officiating
Mm-hmm.
crew. But if their record has shown, against those top teams, they don't give it their best, and they come out with the loss. So that very well could happen in this game too against the Ravens, especially with a tight race atop the AFC North. The Ravens, they want to win out. So
Mm-hmm.
expect them to play some of their best game as well in this game. But next game we got, this is a big game right here. This is going to be one of the game of the weeks, and that's the Denver Broncos and the Cincinnati Bengals. Look out, guys. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Bengals are within a little bit of a reach right now of the playoffs. And you don't want to play the Bengals, I feel like, if they make the playoffs, especially with what their offense is doing. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase are probably the best tandem in the NFL right now. Jamar Chase leading the Triple Crown at wide receiver with yardage, touchdowns, and receptions. He's just killing it, and so is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's playing probably some of the best quarterback play in the NFL right now. The Broncos, on the other hand, Broncos have shocked a lot this year. They've shocked me because of everything that happened in the offseason. They practically have no money to spend because it's all going to Russell Wilson. And they have a rookie quarterback. But they're 9-6 right now. Very impressive 9-6. Their defense has looked amazing. Have looked really good. How are they going to do, though, against this firepower of an offense with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins? Uh, I don't know that they're going to fare well at all. I would love to see Denver win this game, especially on the road. But I think the Bengals uh, they got the momentum on their side, coming off a home win against a division rival in the Browns. I know it's the Browns, and the Bengals are 2-5 at home, which is not good at all. But I just think the Bengals got it right now. They are looking like they should have looked earlier on in the year. Give me the Bengals this game. I'm going to go pretty single-handedly this game, 28-10 Bengals.
Well, well, well. What have we here? We have another game in which we disagree.
Yeah.
I The Broncos are currently seated in the seventh spot, and they're not going anywhere. They will make the playoffs, and the Bengals will be eliminated from playoff contention with this game. Yes, all the analytics are going to tell you that the Bengals are going to win, but this Broncos team, they're built on their defense and they're built on not turning the ball over, which Bo Nix, being one of the most accurate passers that has come out of college in recent memory, that that is a recipe for success under Sean Payton's watch. So I'm going to take the Broncos in this. And yes, the Bengals are going to score. They have been scoring at a breakneck pace. However, uh, the Broncos, I think, can even it out. And this will be down to the wire. Uh, I am going to say that we'll probably see a 33-31 game out of this. I'm taking the Broncos.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, besides the last week against Cleveland, the Bengals are not shy of giving up points. So the Broncos can definitely tally up the score here against that defense. So we'll see how that plays. A couple other games of note, talk about briefly. Ed, the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. That NFC North is tough, man. It's tough. And now with the Vikings and Lions tied atop, Green Bay's coming here like, hey, guys, you know, I've kind of controlled this division for a while. Let me in. How do you see this game playing against the Vikings?
Well, I will start with this little bit. Green Bay has not lost a game to anybody that is beneath them in the playoff rankings. Uh, they're, they had 4 losses, and 2 of them were to the Lions, one of them to the Vikings at home earlier this year, and then the fourth one to the Eagles in when they were in Rio.
In Brazil, yep.
So this is a team that is really playing good football. They're just in the absolute dogfight of a division of the NFC North. And the fact that they're going to Minnesota, which is, I always get mad at the NFL schedule makers when they do this. They never seem to bring the Vikings to Lambeau in December.
Yeah.
We always have to go there in December.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because all the TV pundits want to be comfortable,
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
but I just think it's absolutely egregious that that's the case. So uh, I'm I'm gonna take. Oh, Sam Darnold has just looked way too good
Yeah.
and way too much in control. Uh, but Green Bay's linebacking core, especially the kid they got out of Texas A&M in the draft this year, he has just been destroying game plans. So I'm gonna take the Packers to get their second win in the division uh,
I think
in this game.
I think from like a morale wise, I think the Packers would benefit getting this victory. They could use it against a division rival. Uh, but like you said, Sam Darnold, Minnesota right now, they just know how to win games. And they have surprised the heck out of me, Sam Darnold especially. I know I shouldn't be that surprised because I mean he was number 2 overall pick, so I can't be that surprised. But at the same time, he's really brought life to this Vikings team, and he's brought life to his career because he's gonna get a contract after this year. It's guaranteed, and that's how you play to earn a contract. What Sam
Uh-huh.
Darnold is doing this year. Take notes, young quarterbacks. Uh, he's having fun out there too, and I would too if I had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison at receiver because they are 2 phenomenal receivers. And let's not forget T.J. Hawkinson too. He came back from injury. He's got a lot of targets to utilize. So I'm going to go Minnesota in this game. Sorry, Ed, just because of what they've done this year. I do think though,
Understandable.
if they meet in the playoffs, I do think it's a different result. But I'm going to go Vikings in this game. Give you a quick score. Let's go 24 20. So I do think it's going to be close, though, just like this last one was against Seattle with the Vikings.
Let me ask you this about Sam Darnold,
Yeah.
just kind of as an offshoot. How comfortable do you think Sam Darnold is knowing that JJ McCarthy was out the entire season from preseason? He could play. I feel like he's able to play looser,
Loose. Yeah.
yeah, and more comfortable in the offense when he doesn't have that rookie quarterback looking over his shoulder, going, you're in my spot. Yeah.
That's kind of why I said if they face off in the playoffs, I think it's a different result because that's pressure being added on him, having that quarterback behind him. Right now, he knows this is his job. It's nice and loose. But once that pressure is on him, I think that I don't want to use the word crumble, but I think that he will stumble. And that's why I think in the playoffs, when the pressure is a little bit more higher, that's why I'm going to go with Green Bay, because I got more faith in Jordan Love when pressure's on the line than a Sam Darnold up until this point. Sam Darnold could prove me wrong. So, but yes, playing more loosely is definitely the key word right now for Sam Darnold. Maybe that's why he's playing so good. But I don't know what's going to happen next year, because the Vikings, they got an interesting one because they drafted J.J. McCarthy. They sought very highly of him.
Mm-hmm.
But here's another team that's also in a very interesting predicament, and that's the Atlanta Falcons. They just gave Kirk Cousins a very big payday, and in that same offseason, drafted Michael Penix Jr. in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like,
And
all right.
benched him.
And yeah, so Kirk Cousins is now riding the bench. Michael Penix Jr. came in, had a great first game. Got a great first game. Because NFL is different than college. You're not going to see Michael Penix put up the same numbers he put at Washington in his first NFL game. And I thought he looked really good. He looked comfortable out there. But they're facing against Washington this week. I'll talk about the quarterback situation here in a bit. Let's talk about this game. Washington just came off probably one of their biggest wins this year against the Eagles. I know the Eagles had some injuries, but this is a big division game, and Washington's playing for playoffs. They won it when they needed most, and that throw that Jaden Daniels did to essentially win the game was such an NFL throw. I mean, this is right before he breaks his route. He threaded the needle right exactly where he needed to, but he did that in college. I know he had freaks at receivers and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., but he's doing the same thing in the NFL. I can't get over the kid's accuracy. I really can't. He just flicks it. It's like Steph Curry on a 3-point shot. He just flicks it and it goes in. So this game here, I think it's going to be kind of a welcome to the show moment for Michael Penix Jr. Give me the Commanders in this game. Jaden Daniels is going to have fun, and they're going to win this game. Let's go 21-14 Commanders.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat on this one. Commanders, they are riding high, and at this point, Jaden Daniels just needs to set some space on his shelf next to his Heisman for the Offensive Rookie of the Year, because that was locked up yesterday. I
Yeah.
don't think there's a chance anybody uh, overcomes him on that front, because nobody's going to get that type of opportunity to outshine anybody else.
Yeah.
So he definitely did the job there. Yeah, good job, AJ Brown.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So I am I am becoming more and more of a believer of Dan Quinn being the head coach of this Washington team. He certainly has them going in the right direction. As far as the Falcons, they are they're looking toward the future, having Michael Penix with Bijan Robinson and those freaks that they have on the outside. That's their future, and right now they're giving their future an opportunity to blossom together. So while it sounds great for next year, this game, this is going to be Washington's game, and I I think this is while Washington can be dynamic and explosive on offense, they can also be mistake prone. So that's going to keep Atlanta in this game. So we'll probably see this be another high scoring affair, 27-24.
So, Ed, let me ask you, go straight to this. Have we seen Kirk Cousins' last game in the NFL?
Uh, Possibly, but he's got enough money. He can probably keep Coles afloat for a while.
Well, yeah, yeah, he can. And I asked that question because we talked about him being benched. We've seen kind of the rumors that the Falcons pretty much do intend on cutting him before he's due his bonus in March. But by doing so, they still owe him $90 million in the
Yeah,
contract.
yeah.
Uh, isn't I'm pretty sure Kirk Cousins is he number 3 or number 4 on the highest paid quarterback list of all time, I think, earnings wise. So he's earned a lot in the NFL, believe it or not. And I mean, he's had an ACL, he's had an Achilles injury.
Hmm.
Uh, I think that financially he'll be set for a while. Maybe we have seen it because he's contemplating, he's mulling retirement. He's going to give it some time and think about it. But that's why I wanted to ask that question: have we seen his last game in the NFL?
I think there's a landing spot for him that, given that the upcoming draft is going to be pretty weak on the quarterback position, uh, there's a place or two that we could be seeing Kirk Cousins take the field.
Don't you dare say it, okay? don't you say Pittsburgh, okay?
No, no, not Pittsburgh at all.
Yeah, yeah. I
I'm talking a team that has a dynamic rookie tight end
Las
that
Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna talk about that actually here in one more second too. I want to go over Thaddeus's picks. He's not here today. And then we're going to go over our records. Thaddeus went with pretty much the favorites this week with the Chiefs over the Steelers, Ravens over the Texans, Bengals over the Broncos, and then the Vikings over the Packers and the Commanders over the Falcons. And let's talk about our records here because we're going down to the last 2 weeks, Ed, and I'm out of race for first place, but it is coming down to you and Thaddeus. Um, we got. I went 1-4 this last week. Gosh, that was pretty bad there with my one win being the Packers. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Packers. Uh, Ed, you went 3-2, and Thaddeus went 4-1, which brings his record to 49-31, and you to 53-30. So it's neck and neck right now. It's a 4-game lead on your uh, first place trophy. Go ahead and dust off your shelf there because it could be coming your way here shortly. But I'm just hoping to finish the year 500 or better. I'm at 40-37 right now, so let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and take it.
Sure thing.
um, let's lastly talk about the current draft status. At number 1, we got the New York Giants at 2-13. Ed, is there a way that they could get screwed over by a division rival?
Absolutely, there is, because the Giants are expected to play Philly. And the funniest thing is, Philly at this point, I think they have assumed the position as the number 2 seed in the NFC, which means they don't get the bye. So, because they don't get the bye, they don't get to rest their players. So, what better way to rest their players than to rest all their starters against the Giants and allow the Giants to win that game? So, considering where everybody else is in the pecking order for draft picks, that would drop the Giants from number 1 to number 7. So, that that would be just the biggest no, 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 no. Yeah, and believe me, Philly would love nothing more than to screw over the Giants' draft status by making them win.
That would be like what C.J. Gardner Johnson did to the crowd when he got ejected. Give him the double bird.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean that would be crazy if we see that. I mean, at some point, the Giants, if they're winning this game, they're like, all right, we got to Drew Lock throw an interception right now.
Yeah, yeah. Run the pick six. Run the pick six.
Yeah, it's in our playbook. So we very well could see that. But I mean, New England, they won this last week. Uh, put them at 3-12. Vegas won. They're at 3-12. I mean, we saw Antonio Pierce's comments on that. How much is Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward sweating right now, knowing that Cleveland is at 3-12?
Oh, I still think there's going to be another year of DTR.
Yeah,
Possibly Jameis Winston in Cleveland. The question becomes Will Levis in Tennessee, because if he's done there, then they've got to move him.
Yeah.
And if they move him, that leaves an opening because they don't have anybody behind him. So Shedeur Sanders sounds like a better fit there. Not really a fit as far as the way that he plays, but more of a fit of this is who they can now say is the guy.
Yeah.
And too many rookie quarterbacks drafted that early get thrown to the wolves way too early.
Yeah.
The only advantage that I would see Shedeur Sanders having going to Tennessee is he's been reading NFL defenses since he was a kid.
Yeah.
So he would be able to have that part of the game under wraps.
Well, and I mean, the report I saw this last weekend is Cam Ward's possibly going to be the first quarterback off the board. Do you see that, or are you still thinking it's Shedeur Sanders or bust?
It's Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward can throw the ball.
Yeah.
Cam Ward can be escapable. I think of Cam Ward as the next iteration of Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And without the right fit, Cam Ward is not going to be successful.
I agree there. Shedeur Sanders, I mean, I'd want to go to New York because, I mean, Malik Neighbors, I think is going to be a great receiver in the NFL. You already have that there with the Giants. So it's like you're kind of really wanting that. I know Tennessee just got Calvin Ridley. Maybe you'd like that, but Las Vegas is intriguing too. That's why with them winning, I know it's the NFL. You don't ever really want to lose games, but I feel like Vegas would have been a big prime spot for Shedeur, especially with homeboy at tight end. So
yeah, Brock Bowers at tight end there is just he was so dynamic and just went over 1,000 yards for the year.
Yeah, he's a problem. Rookie. He's a problem. I mean, he's just doing it with ease, and I love it. I mean, the NFL has become such a tight end game,
and not to mention, it's been with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell throwing the ball to him.
Yeah, Uncle Rico. Okay, so if he could do it with them, can you imagine what he would do with an elite quarterback? Vegas could very well be a place that some players may end up wanting to go play at here very soon, especially if they do get a big-time quarterback there. I know Devontae Adams had his issues. He's gone, but they get another big receiver there. Right, Vegas, it's the city of lights. So yeah. We'll see there. But there's a lot that's still going to be played out here because right now, Giants at 1, Patriots at 2, Jaguars at 3, Titans at 4, Cleveland at 5, and Vegas at 6. That's all subject to change depending on who wins, who loses. So we'll keep you updated on that draft order because it is big. We're going to find out who gets Shedeur Sanders, who gets Travis Hunter. I mean, most of these teams need quarterbacks. I mean, New England's got Drake May, so they won't. Jacksonville's tied up with Trevor Lawrence, so one of those two teams is going to get Travis Hunter most likely. But we'll see. Maybe Cleveland gets him. I don't know.
I'm thinking that Jacksonville goes and gets Kelvin Banks from Texas.
True. I mean,
Left.
they need the line so to protect Trevor Lawrence. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. But the next question that we'll talk about on a different episode is Travis Hunter, receiver or cornerback or both. So we'll talk about that at a different time. It's about all we have today. We appreciate you guys tuning in. And I also want to wish all you guys a Merry Christmas, an eventual Happy New Year's. We'll get to that, but enjoy your time with your families. Whether you're religious or not, celebrating Christmas, just really enjoy your times with the family. It's the holidays. This is when it really means the most. So, all of us here at Total Sports Talk, we wish you guys a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, share these videos, and let us know in the comments how you feel, thoughts, opinions, predictions. There is a lot of predictions at hand here as far as the NFL draft, college football playoff, and the NFL seeding with the playoffs coming up. So we look forward to hearing from you guys. But until next time, guys, we are rounding third and we are headed for home.